Good morning, everyone. Jose J. Garcia here, real estate investor, coach, and mentor. We got another podcast for you with a very special guest this morning. I'm honored to have him. I have Steve Case here, who, Steve started out with two mobile homes years ago, two mobile homes, much like a Lonnie dealer. He'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But since then, he has built an empire when it comes to the mobile home niche, the industry. I mean, Steve, you've done multiple mobile home parks, multiple mobile home deals. You've dealt with dealerships. I mean, you're an investor, you're a serial entrepreneur. I can keep on listing. He's a phenomenal guy. And Steve, I actually met you through an ad. I once upon a time posted at We Buy Mobile Homes, and your park manager reached out to me. Hey, we have a mobile home that you can buy and get it out of our park. So it's a beautiful way how that connection works. But Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jose, and I appreciate you having me on your podcast. And thanks for the whole thing about my past. But I don't know if I have an empire, but I've been able to really grow through this industry and build a solid passive income that's made me financially free. So it's been really good to me.
Absolutely. Well, you got a beautiful double wide infinity more in the background. So that we'll start with that.
Definitely.
But Steve, for those that don't know you, tell us about you. Tell us about Steve.
Sure. Yeah. I started in the industry in 1999. I was an Air Force pilot here in the middle Georgia area at Warner Robins Air Force Base and looking for an avenue for really financial freedom. I knew I had a few years left to retirement, really didn't want to do the airline route. So I went to one of the real estate seminars and actually met Lonnie Scruggs, who wrote the book Deals on Wheels. Later on in line, I became very, very close friends. Great guy. We miss him, and he passed a few years ago. But I went home, read his book, and I said, I can do this. So I went out and bought, traditionally was cash, a couple of mobile homes in an old subdivision that had been mobile home park that had been subdivided, and did exactly what Lonnie subscribed. I refurbed the home, sold it on a lease option, rent to own. Fortunately, I had the dirt with it, so I just rented the dirt out kind of as a lot. And those worked out great. I had them done within 2 months. Went on from there and met another gentleman named Ernie too, who became a mentor of mine, who's passed as well, that really explained to me that I really need to get into the park business. So I have a place for my own Lonnie deals. But I also, during that time frame before I bought my first park, Jose, I went to a park owner here locally who's advertising the sale of 12 of these really kind of junked out mobiles. Got to meet him. We struck up a really good relationship, and I ended up buying those 12 mobiles and did Lonnie deals on 12 at one time. Worked out really well. Had them for about 3 or 4 years and sold the portfolio to another gentleman that was wanting to get in the business, and just sold him all 12 of those lease options. But it's been a great journey. And that's how I started. Then I got my first park in 2000. And since then, I've had bought and sold 18 parks. I've kind of got my park portfolio down now to a really nice free properties in the Warner Robins, Middle Georgia area. I've also ventured out into other real estate asset classes like storage and multifamily, but been heavily involved in this industry for a long time. And as we spoke about in 2004, I started, along with my friend and partner, Corey Donaldson, Mobile Home University. We did seminars across the country from 2004 to 2008, some training on how to buy mobile home parks and how to find them, how to determine the value and all those sort of things. And then 2008, I kind of had a lot of things on my plate, a lot of properties, and decided, I want to step back from the educational piece for a while, and sold the business to Frank Rolfe and Dave Reynolds, which they've taken it and really expanded it huge. Still have a great relationship with Frank and Dave, great guys, and they've done some amazing things. They're the ones that have built an empire in this industry. I just kind of kept it mellow, kept it low enough for me to do what I wanted to do, and it's been great. But that's how it all started.
But I mean, and I'm hearing take action. As I'm sitting here listening to you, I mean, you attended a meetup area. You learned about this. You met Lonnie, who is a legend in this for sure, and you immediately went out and got two mobile homes. You rehabbed them, took action, got them up, and noticed, okay, this is something that can work. And you immediately went and got 12 more. And I mean, so you steady scale. Now you mentor and you mentor people as well. You've coached them. You talk
Yeah.
about the university, but you
Mhm.
mentioned mentors a couple times there. How important is a mentor for your growth, or anybody's for that matter?
It's priceless to have the right mentor. I say that I can't tell you how many millions of dollars that Lonnie and Ernest and Dykes Boddiford and Jack Miller, all these folks that I've attended their training, they mentored me, they've become friends, great guys. They're willing to share their expertise and their knowledge. Uh, I think it was Jack that used to have this saying, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. That was his motto. See, and it was a great statement. Yeah, you pay for some of the education and you pay for those relationships and maybe some of the programs they have. But I can tell you, they paid many, many more times than any education you could have ever attended at a university. So it's very, very important to have mentors. It's very, very important to have colleagues, people that do the same thing you do, groups. And we'll talk about this later. That's how we started SECO.
Mm,
Where we just 3 or 4 of us got together and say, how can we help each other grow our business? But it's extremely important. I don't know how you can tread today's marketplace without them. It's becoming more complicated. More things are happening quickly. We see the interest rates going now. We see the
yeah.
huge glut or huge neglect or need for affordable housing. We see more and more people going homeless. We see more and more people combining
Yes.
households. It's really becoming a problem.
You said that. That's funny to hear. It's like, and the same thing from a mentor came to me once. He said, "You will pay for your education. Doesn't matter how you put it. You can put the
Yeah.
time and try to figure it out, or you can invest in it and have somebody been there, done that, teach you." So, no, I agree with you 100%. Coaches and mentors are the way to go. And if I were to have to do it all over again, and probably yourself, is get a mentor. I'm not going to start anything until I'm being mentored to something. So, but there's a big difference between a mobile home and a mobile home park. So talk a little difference. Obviously, you got two mobile homes, 12 later, but your first park, that's a whole different ballpark.
Yeah, it is. But really, it's bigger, right? You get in this park, and it could be a small park. My first one was just, if I remember, I 67 pads, which is not a big park in today's environment. There's my largest one was 380, which I did in Augusta. But at the time, okay, so it's more money, right? A lot more money than a used mobile home. That's where one of my mentors came in, Ernie too. He says, Steve, he said, I want you to think outside the box. I know you don't have a lot of money, but there's other ways to buy a mobile home park than a huge down payment and going to a bank. So he taught me how to do a master lease with an option to buy, which was a really, really good technique to buy. Little down payment. There wasn't any down payment. It was a little security or option deposit. And I was able to go and get that park for relatively little money down, go in and refurb it and start getting homes in, which led to another mentoring moment when, okay, I don't have the money. I had at the time 30 empty lots to go out and buy homes and do my own Lonnie deals. So he says, okay, go find others that'll do them for you. Well, I didn't know a whole lot of Lonnie dealers in my area other than me. And he taught me how to go out and secure private funds using people's IRAs and all these sort of things to allow them to become the Lonnie dealer. And I take care of everything for them. So, yeah, but once you've done it, and I know your students see the same thing, once they've done a couple of deals with you, I'm sure you have many students going out and doing their own deals now. They may call you and say, hey, Jose, I've done this, I've done that, but you created that foundation for them. And that's with the parks, it was no different. Once I did my first one, I said, well, this is not too bad. Let's do the second one. And that's really where I got in trouble, where I had to jump out of the educational pieces because I had parks in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, along with self-storage facilities. And here I am doing the mentoring, coaching, teaching like you've done. I didn't have time to even sleep. My properties were getting neglected because I didn't have enough time to spend on it. So, but it's not that big of a leap. I would encourage all of your students, all the folks on this podcast, that yeah, start with a home or two, but have that ultimate goal to own your own park, because that's really where the money is. Because this, with a rent-only lease option contract, eventually it's going to run out, or they're going to pay you off. You got to go do another one.
Mhm.
That dirt will always be there. You're always going to get rent for it, and it keeps going up every year. So that'd be my encouragement.
Creative financing, that's good. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
lovely invention for sure. Creative financing, the least out of pocket, the better, always. Real quick, you talk about parks in Augusta. You mentioned, I know in Warner Robins, you have some in Florida. What are the key components to choosing the right location for a park?
Well, obviously, it has to do. Due diligence is a huge, huge topic, and I'm seeing more and more people these days skipping the key areas of due diligence. As a matter of fact, the very first educational topic we're going to do at SECO this year is from two guys that are sharp as tacks, one of the best in the industry on due diligence. And I want that to be the very key aspect of those wanting to get in the park business, because they got to understand due diligence. Because I've dealt with at least 3 or 4 people in the last 12 to 16 months that did very little to no due diligence, bought a park and realized I'm in trouble. I can't put 4 homes on these 4 empty lots because it's not set up that way, septic tanks, whatever. I can only put one. So they counted on 4 lots. Now they got one, those
Mhm.
sort of things. So due diligence is important. You have to have it in a market where you have people that have enough money to buy your product or rent your product, right? I learned that mistake. Uh, I went down to Albany, Georgia, with a beautiful mobile home park. Needed some renovations, but it was gorgeous. The price was right, and I realized that my market, people couldn't afford to pay more than $300, $400 a month. 10, 12 years ago. I can't survive doing that. So I beat around with it for 7 years, made it as good as I could, and ended up selling it because I just could not. The income wasn't there. So that's a big factor.
That-
Um,
That's that's an
Go ahead.
interesting market, Albany.
Yes, very interesting. Uh, unfortunately, Macon's becoming that way as well. But uh,
Uh,
yeah.
we should
Anyway,
make a podcast just on those 2 locations. Maybe the next
yeah, yeah, location specific.
one.
How amenable is the local government going to be to you being in there with the property? A lot of them want them to disappear, right?
Mhm.
You've seen that a lot when you're placing homes with your students all over, the state of Georgia. I know you've dealt with some inspectors that have been just almost impossible to deal with. So those are the 3 key factors, I think, of choosing a property to buy.
Absolutely. Yes. No, inspectors, that's a whole nother topic also. Um, Being in this industry as long as you have, you've seen the real estate market go up, down, lows, highs. How has that affected mobile homes?
Well, I spoke earlier about Frank Rolfe. I tell this to everybody that I meet. Frank has been single-handedly the guy who has brought billions of dollars into the industry, because he did a PR campaign about returns that parks were getting and so forth. So it has changed. It went from when I first started, Jose, banks would laugh at you if you went there for a park loan. They would, they're all trailer parks, drug addicts, you get it, degenerates, kind of thing. They didn't realize there's good people that are living in there, that have been living in there a long time, and they need that affordable housing product. So you had to do creative financing. You had to go borrow money from other people if you wanted to pay cash for a property if you didn't have it yourself. And then the banks, I think in like 2010 to 12 era, really saw that there was returns, and they started funding them. We had some governmental agencies jump on board. So the funding became available, and that's when the prices started escalating. The returns over the past few years have been rather high because we've seen the rental prices continue to escalate. So operators are making more money and bigger returns. But what we're seeing right now is the local bank piece and the regional bank piece is pulled back to not giving any loans almost. I mean, I talked with a broker the other day who has a property. 3 buyers have dropped out because they can't get funding. So we may be back to the same scenario we were 25 years ago, when creative financing was the only way to make things happen. Seller carrybacks, master leases with options. And by the way, that's one of the topics I'm going to speak at with my good friend Ben Brabin at SECO, is how to think creatively when you're buying your first park or your next park. So we're going to talk about some of the methods, and Ben is used a lot. Great guy, big portfolio. Ought to have him on your podcast one time. He's a great guy to talk to. Started as a police officer doing the same thing. just buying a mobile home and turned in, I don't know how many properties Ben has. I know he 20, 25 maybe,
Wow.
has bought portfolios and that sort of thing. But we're gonna do one topic, one educational piece on creative deal making is what we call it, how to think outside the box.
Absolutely. Definitely love to have one on the podcast. Absolutely. So now we're seeing a lot of real estate investors, the traditional venturing from real estate to mobile home parks. Well, how do you see the affordable housing concept with all these corporations and big people coming into the market?
Well, what's been a negative impact of that is, and I got to blame a little bit of this on the brokers, Jose, is they'll advertise a park. Let's say it's a 100 space park, and they'll say rents below market. And they're telling the buyer, hey, as soon as you go in there, you can go from 300 to 450 within 30 days or 60 days. Well, maybe they can, maybe they can't. What they're doing is they're driving out some of the good people in their property. And a lot of them did it. And unfortunately, it costs so much money to move a home, that some of these older homes can't be moved,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So people just abandon them and walk away. Um, so, all of this new money, these people coming in that don't really understand the industry has really driven the prices of parks up. I think there's going to be a correction in the next couple of years. They're going to drop back down to where they should be. What that correction amount is, nobody knows. Uh, and it's really impacted some of the local governments too about, the disarray that's come in from these corporate owners and out-of-state owners and them not wanting to fix things and improve the capital, the capital improvements need upgraded, sewage issues, that kind of thing. And that's part of what I've been involved in. I was with the Georgia Manufacturing Housing Association on the board for 2 years as a community owner. And we tried to work with some of that with the community owners saying, hey, you've got to keep your parks up to certain standards and so forth. Uh, I think there's going to be a little retreat back to that of responsible community owners. And I hope that anybody that's on this podcast it's going to become a community owner would think in that lines. It's not about squeezing people for profits. It's about providing good, affordable housing to your consumers or your tenants.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been an unprecedented amount of people jump in that really coming from other industries or first getting started, that unfortunately really don't know what they're doing. I know Frank Roth does a great job of educating people wanting to get in this business. But unfortunately, like we talked about earlier, people don't want to pay for that education. They think, oh, I read this article, I saw this podcast, I can go do this and not worry about it. So it's a challenge the whole industry is going to face over the next few years.
It's interesting you say that, and we had Cole Phillips for those of you listening on the podcast, watching this replay. I'll put a link to the Cole Phillips podcast that we had also, and he talked a lot about that. It's like a lot of these big people are getting into no, they're clueless. They don't know the proper due diligence, and I mean, he walked me through a due diligence. I didn't even realize certain things. I mean, and that's the thing is people are not doing the real homework. But definitely seeing certain communities, being taken from one to the other, that's definitely a challenge. So I gotta ask Steve, what is one of the craziest phone calls you've ever received from a resident or tenant in one of your communities?
Well, before I say that, you know this, Cole Phillips and I are dear friends. We're partners in a property. Uh, by the way, Cole's going to be doing a 1 hour segment at SECO on what it costs to set up homes and move them and so forth. So your viewers, if they end up going to SECO, which I hope they do, will be able to get more of a realistic idea. And you know this too, you teach it, but he's going to be doing a session on that. But the craziest things, there's been a lot of them. Oh, probably the craziest thing was the park I had in Augusta, beautiful property, 380 pads. The biggest one I ever did. We had 62 homes there when we started. We infilled 200 homes over a period of 7 years. But my manager called me up one morning. He said, Steve, he said, I need your advice. So what's up? His name was Graham. And he said, well, the park is locked down and it's a big park. It was over 100 acres. It was a big property.
Wow.
And the news folks are here and I've got the SWAT team on site and helicopters flying overhead. And I said, really? Of course, he caught me off guard. And I said, is this a joke? And he said, no, actually, there's a resident, an elderly resident who had moved a younger man in. She's a female. As a friend, caregiver, I'm not sure why, but he's holding her hostage because she told him he had to leave because he's not taking care of her at gunpoint.
Oh,
And I said,
wow.
oh my goodness. All right. So I had to go through the process of the media, that's the last thing I wanted talking to the media. I need some coordination from what's going on from the police and all that sort of thing. So I was able to get a hold of the person in charge of the SWAT team to give me an assessment of what's going on. And we made a blanket statement that I had Graham read to the local TV stations. Fortunately, it was resolved in a few hours. We didn't get very good press because of it, but it wasn't our fault. This gentleman, we had approved him, background checked him and everything when he actually moved in with her. So that was probably one of the most bizarre moments.
You had your own TV show going on out there, not
Well,
the good one.
not a good one, no.
Absolutely. Steve, if you had to do it all over again, start back from scratch, number one, what would you do differently?
Okay, what would I do differently? I would have probably, Jose, almost every project but two were turnaround park projects. Cole and I just did a project in Perry, Georgia, a couple of years ago, where it's like 2020, so it was 3 years ago, where we had to demo, I think it was 40 homes and put them in trash cans. We had to redo the roads. The city came in and did a great job of putting in new water lines. And by the way, we're going to do an hour segment. It's called the Perry Project, on how operators can work together with local officials in turning a really horrible community around and make it into a wonderful place for affordable housing. But anyway, all of my projects were these turnaround, a lot of work, a lot of money's being thrown at the infrastructure. And I really never made money until the end game. Either I sold the property, which all of them but one I ended up doing before I made any real profit, because I had borrowed or invested so much money in the infrastructure and putting homes in. I would go back to trying to find smaller deals that didn't require as much of that. So I would stay away because there's a lot of moving parts with these turnarounds. Would have probably tried to get more good quality Lonnie dealers in to fill the properties up than using my own fund or my own brain power or trying to borrow money from individuals and so forth. It was unique because we never hardly run across too many that were doing that type of thing, buying homes in other people's park and working with the community owner to screen and get the person in that was buying it from the Lonnie dealer. So those are probably two things I would do.
Absolutely. Good, good. A couple more for you.
Yeah.
You've achieved so much, you've done so much, you've seen it all at this point. What is next for you?
Well, it's been a great ride. Right now, Jose, I've gotten my properties down to a portfolio of all the assets that I want to keep. My son's involved in the business, more on our self-storage side than the MH side. I had kind of, even though SECO has grown over the years, I kind of stepped away from it. Like I said, it all started with 3 or 4 of us getting together, saying, how can we help each other out? And it grew into an event last year where they had 600 folks there. You were at the event, where we have manufacturers there, we have vendors there, we have community owners there, we have good speakers this year that are teaching, that have went out there and done it. What's from this point on, I think it's more of a getting back a little bit to the mentoring side. I'm working with 3 or 4 guys right now that already have parks and are doing things and want to expand their operations. Really have been tasked this year to reframe and upgrade the educational piece of SECO, which, by the way, you're going to be given an hour presentation on how to infill properties, and your segment's going to be how to use Lonnie dealers to do that, along with Paul Chase. So I'm looking forward to that. Appreciate you coming. And just working on, we need more, Jose, we need more education in this industry for those wanting to get into it, those that are already into it that really don't know what they're doing. And can maximize their properties, not just on the profit side, but maximize them for the communities, for the residents. So I'm working together with a few guys to do that. Ben's one of them. I spoke before, but there's this group of us called the Kings that meet once a year, that are all involved in this industry, that all have a vested interest in making it better for everybody. They're willing to share their knowledge. So we're going to do that through that platform at SECO. And also I'm working with Frank Rolfe, a little bit, not with the mobile home university side, but more on my side is more giving back and helping others. Frank and of course Dave have their business model with their training and their boot camps and so forth. I'm not really involved in that anymore, but that's kind of where I see myself going. If a property comes available, I'm more localized now here in the middle Georgia area, and it makes sense. Myself and Cole, he's wanting to grow his portfolio. We'll probably get involved in it. We've looked at a couple things. So that's kind of where I'm headed, if you want to say.
Absolutely.
I love to fly and golf, so I'm going to make more trips flying to play golf. So.
Yeah. I'm hoping to take a ride in one of your planes, so we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah, sure.
So,
well, I just have one plane. I don't have a fleet.
So SECO, let's talk about SECO, because that's definitely phenomenal. Last year was my first year. The year before that was during COVID time. I think it was virtual, so I didn't get involved in that. But I mean, when I think of growth and think of connecting with people, you got to network. You got to get out there. You got to shake hands. You got to talk, and you got to get to know people. Now, my thing is always, where can I find like-minded people, driven, successful, been there, people like yourself? What if I could put them all in one room together? It just walk around and network. Well, that's what SECO was to me last year. I sat there and thought, my goodness, everybody's here. I can just connect, and you introduced me to some people, which the network keeps on happening. So this year it's going to be bigger. SECO, which is in September.
Yeah, September the 11th through the 13th.
Yeah, and I mean, talk about some of the people that are there. I mean, obviously park owners, operators, but I mean, you also see managers, right? I mean, everyday people trying.
Yeah, we're doing Jose. We're doing a segment called Managers Monday, which is specific to the managers. It'll be in a separate training area, along with separate from the main SECO events. But yeah, it's I used to do the mobile home university thing. And it was once a year annual event with 3 or 4 boot camps during the year. We had a home study course and all that. And we did all that type of training, the pay for education, if you wanted to say. And, but when I met Spencer Rohn, David Roden, and myself, the 3 of us kind of started SECO. We all got together and said, hey, we've been so blessed with our mentors and things that have gone on throughout the industry. Let's get together, help other park owners, and help the industry. And that's what SECO was founded. It's a 501c3. It's nonprofit. We don't do this for money. As a matter of fact, Spencer spends hundreds of hours a year on it. I spend as much, not that much, but a lot of time. And there's other volunteers that I haven't mentioned involved in this that put it together. And its core value, its core mission statement was community owners helping community owners. And that's what we've gotten back to. It's kind of turned into kind of a little bit of a trade show. We have manufacturers. We have 4 homes going to be displayed there this year. All the vendors you can think of associated with the industry, all the tools and companies and services there to help you in whatever aspect you want to be. But this year was getting back to the basics. They asked me to come back and revamp all of that. And I've been got a few folks that are helping me out. Fortunate. One, Ben Brabant, a few of the Kings are helping me. But its core value is going to be this, Jose. We're going to provide a training sessions. There's going to be 12 of them. In that session, each speaker needs to be able to relate to someone brand new, just wanting to get started, as well as a person like Ben that has a 20-plus part portfolio. So each session is set up for that. We talk about the due diligence. We've talked about, I've got Ferd Neiman, the mobile home park lawyer, coming. He's going to be talking to those. I was just on his podcast last week, talking to those folks, basic things you need to know in a purchase agreement as a new investor versus, okay, here's the really high-end provisions and high-end paragraphs you can have for the more larger portfolios. That's just one of the topics. The due diligence guys we talked about. Cole and I doing the Perry project. Myself and Ben doing creative deal making. We got Jefferson Lilly coming. I know Jefferson. He went to one of my boot camps back in 2007. Great guy. He has started 3 funds, I believe, in buying parks. He must have 40 plus properties now. Started from nothing to 40 plus properties. He's going to come and talk to you about how to evaluate a deal. You asked me before about what properties should you be looking for. He's going to break every component of the whole mobile home park apart and what its value should be during his session. I don't want to. I could go on for another 30 minutes about all the sessions.
So much value right there alone.
Right.
I mean, all these things happening: insurance, funding, education, the networking. You got mobile homes that are
well, and that's what I want to talk about too. Was and really focus on is the networking. Back when Corey and I did MHU, we did exit surveys of all the people that come. Our last event, we had 800 attendees in Austin, Texas in 2008. But throughout every year, we would say, did you get the most out of Mobile Home Millions? That was the brand of our event. And overwhelmingly, 1 and 2 was always networking and education. Mm-hmm. But the key aspect was the networking. And that's why we've come back. We didn't have a whole lot of focused networking with SECO until this year. What we're going to do each night is we're going to have 10 to 12 roundtables. So they're going to be separated apart starting at 7 p.m. They go on until as long as people want to talk. We're going to have all of the speakers are going to be at a roundtable. There's going to be 2 hosts at each roundtable. You'll be at one as your speaking event, your first night. And you're going to also have another person there that's familiar with what you do, money dealers and other aspects. And we're going to have 24 hosts, if you want to call it each. They're going to be answering questions. So any specific question any attendee has will be able to be answered at these roundtables. And while they're there, they're going to be able to meet other people that are asking the same questions with the names, where they're from, and so forth. Those relationships are invaluable. All of the people that I've been associated with and helped me expand my business have been found through my mentors or networking at these events. So that's the key aspect. The folks that are coming to SECO, there's going to be big screens throughout the event that are going to show the person's face of the host of the roundtables, their name, and what areas that they can answer questions on. So they're going to be able to formulate this plan throughout the event on Monday and Tuesday and say, okay, Jay Garcia, he knows how to buy mobile homes, put them in parks, knows all about it, the setup process, this and that. And they're right, he's at table 12. So they'll be able to say, I need to go see Jay Garcia at table 12 tonight. So we're really focusing on the networking. If any of your students or people involved in your network want to get involved in buying new mobile homes, which, by the way, there's a lot of park operators who would dearly want your students to bring new homes in there, brand new homes. We're going to have manufacturers there. There's only going to be 4 display homes on site, but there's going to be 7 to 8 manufacturers. Okay. They can get wholesale pricing much cheaper than they can get at a dealer going to a retailer. So those are the aspects. But it's and for those that are interested, we're doing a golf tournament the day before and a Braves game, so you can attend one of those 2 on Sunday, the 10th. But it's a great opportunity. I think that everybody should attend. The price is not that it's, for what you're getting out of it, it's a bargain. I promise.
It's an investment. It's an investment.
Yeah, it's an investment. I know you're going to be sending out information to your network, and for those that are interested in going, Jose will have some stuff on his website and that so forth. You can contact him. But yeah, I hope to see everybody there. I'm really excited this year because the guys and gals that are coming in to speak and the hosts of the roundtables, I know them all, and I know what they've done in the industry, and every one of them that I can think of started from scratch. And those are the kind of people you want to learn from and network with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Education, networking, and it's organized. SECO was so organized last year. I'm sure it's going to be even better this year. So September can't get here soon enough. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
So, I forgot to tell you, by the way, September 11th is a very memorable day in our history, right? From 9/11.
Absolutely.
And we want to acknowledge that because we're big into veterans. I'm a veteran. A lot of the guys that you'll meet there are veterans who got in this industry. But I've got two special keynote speakers coming this year. And you can, and you'll see that once that you've given them connections to the SECO information. Scott Using wrote a book about in Ramada when he was there, but he is a veteran that's big into veterans programs. But Scott Mann, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, actually was on Fox News yesterday.
Okay. Okay.
Great. He's a good friend of mine. He's a retired special forces guy with the Army, a Ranger. 2006, Scott and his brother Travis came to one of our events. They just had inherited 3 mobile home parks from their parents.
Wow.
And I was able to get to know them. They went to one of my boot camps. I helped them with their projects there. We became friends. Scott, I retired in 2006, and then Scott went off and did a great career in the Army. Wrote a book called Operation Pineapple Express. He was very big, and he was the one that spearheaded the effort a couple of years ago when we pulled everybody out of Afghanistan to get people that were stranded. Very knowledgeable in the industry, has some mobile home background, and now has a very reputable, he's a speaker throughout the country, does a lot with veterans and helping veterans. But they're going to give a you'll never forget the presentation and what they're going to give this year as the opening keynote in 9/11. It's going to be awesome.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. That's a great thing. And I mean, you keep on talking about all these people starting from scratch. I mean, everybody there has been there and is doing it. There's no teachers there. These are all people that are legit at what they do.
Right.
I mean, they've gone out there, they know the good, bad, and different, and they're able to share this. And that's where the knowledge comes in. So guys listening on here, I mean, if you're looking at this as an expense, this event is not for you. This is, I mean, it's priceless and it's not expensive by any means. I mean, when you take the value, I mean, it is an investment in yourself. Absolutely. So, Steve, we're going to put the link on here for anybody that is interested on it. You can send us an email, you can drop a comment, we'll connect. One of our team members will connect with you. But any last words, Steve, for anyone looking to get into this industry?
Yes, my last word is just do it. I remember when I bought that book, that Deals on Wheels book, and I came home, I read through it, and I thought, I don't know about this, right? Everybody's wanting to, do rental homes and do this and do that. I said, a mobile home? I'd lived in one years ago when my wife and I first got married. But I said, you know what? The only way I'm going to know is just go do it, right? So I paid cash for that first one. That was a big check to me to write for this mobile home that the floors were shot and everything else. But a lot of people just won't go do it. And that's the thing. You just go do it. Go buy your first part. Just go do it. Now, make sure you got some good education mentoring behind you, but go do it, right? Because the longer you wait, your opportunities are going to dwindle and go away. So my advice to everybody is just go do it. You can't you can't succeed unless you do something.
Absolutely.
And just go do it.
Read, educate yourself, take action, and implement. You're not going to win from the sidelines. Absolutely. Steve, it has been an honor having you on here, sir. I learned something new every time I talk to you. I should call you more often. I'm sure we're going to connect before SECO again. But again, guys, y'all know how to connect with me on here. Send us an email. We hope to see all of you at SECO this year. Steve, thank you for joining me.
Awesome. Jose, thanks for having me. And I look forward to seeing those that do end up coming to SECO. I'll be there. You'll see me run around. Just come there and say, Jose is the reason I'm here.
There you go. Sounds great. All right. Till next time. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.